That transaction went well. The gentleman I purchased off was a really cool guy. He's just into mountain biking and Brodie frames himself. I'm going to take this back home, see what we got, and plan our RestoMod build. So we're in my shop here with the frame. It's in pretty decent shape. It has a 2000 serial number in it, so it puts it in about September of 1992. So making this frame about 30 years old, it's in pretty decent shape. It was well looked after. There's no dings or any major scratches or flaws in the frame other than some paint rash. It's in pretty decent shape. So what I'm going to do is build it up. If I like the way it rides and everything with the frame is cool, then I'll perhaps take it all apart again and professionally paint it. So up at the head tube has the iconic B with the head tube rings top and bottom, a little bit extra flair and some extra strength to that. Nice little touch. We have the sloping top tube. And then we have the brake noodle here, and this routes the brake cable around the seat posts onto that bridge and then perfectly lines up for the brakes. Another nice little touch. This bike also came with a full-size pump holder, and it just mirrors the seat stay there. So this frame came equipped with an anti-chain suck bracket from the factory. Not all frames had that. It's a neat little feature. And at the union here of the top tube, and seat stays, kind of a unique feature here of Brodie frames. The seat stays are mounted above the top tube to give you a little better access and penetration of the weld. And the seat stays aren't TIG welded into place. They're actually nickel silvered into place. It makes for a nice smooth weld. And in this application, it's just as strong as TIG welding. So this is an 18-inch frame. The head tube angle is 71.2 degrees and the seat tube is 74 degrees. So when I was driving to go pick up this bike into Vancouver, I had some time to think and I thought, wow, it would be really cool to do a full-on restoration build on this bike. I started doing some investigating and I realized, whoa man, NOS parts are just through the roof, and even if I can find them, just the cost of shipping to me from other parts of the world were just astronomically high. So I've kind of abandoned that plan. So for you purists, please don't get upset. I'm not changing the frame in any way. So what I'm going to do is find some modern components and modern drivetrain to put on this bike, and we'll turn it into a RestoMod type of bike. So my center island workbench here has a little secret to it. So underneath this piece of wood, I have a surface table. Piece of 3/4 inch steel that's been Blanchard ground, and it's perfectly flat and it's the perfect size to put a frame on it. And we're going to check to see if this frame is still aligned. So I have these 4 blocks here that will sit the frame on. Here's my Starrett surface gauge. You can see that they're all perfectly the same height. They're all cut from the same block of cold rolled steel. And then I also have this rod here with cones on it, and we'll trap the head tube in there and we will see if the frame's actually aligned. So we put these cones in the head tube. I want to make sure that it's seated very well. There's no residue or grease or any chips or rust in there, so that's seated well. And this is cut on an angle here, so it has a little bit of what we call a ramp. So we tighten that up, and then we can ramp that up, and that creates pressure on the cones to seat itself better in the tube. And then we go ahead and put this on the table. So we're just going to see if this is perfectly parallel. So there, it just touches there, and it just touches there. So to me, the head tube here is completely parallel with the table. So let's go ahead and put this block in on the bottom of the seat tube off the butt, so that's perfectly flat. And then we're going to set the second ones in here off the butt, and we'll slide this right into place. That just kisses. This frame is still aligned. After 30 years, this frame is still perfectly flat. So now we know that the actual main triangle is all perfectly aligned. Let's see how the alignment is of the rear triangle. So what I have here is some witness sticks or some alignment bars. Since we already know that the front triangle is aligned, now we have to see if the rear triangle is in alignment with the front triangle. So how this works here, we stick the one end on the head tube and the other end on the seat tube here. And then we have this little micro adjustment here, and we just adjust it so it's just kissing the dropout. And then we come over to the other side, and if the rear triangle is aligned with the front triangle, it should just kiss or do the same. And it would appear that this dropout is this way, about a 32nd of an inch. So that's not too bad. So back in the 90s, the mountain bike scene in my area was just going off. There was all these small manufacturers building these awesome hand-built bike frames like Rocky Mountain, DeCurve, Cove, and of course Brodie bikes. We raced, we rode, we had so much fun. This was my last race I did. We won the 24 Hours Adrenaline in 1999. I was 29 years old and 140 pounds, and we were just having a blast. So one thing that always eluded me was one of those hand-built frames. Now was the opportunity to actually find one, so we're going to build it up and turn it into a nice retro ride. I got most of the components here for final assembly. I tried to utilize the local bike shops as best I could. I actually did find these 26-inch rims locally. To my surprise, 26-inch rims are kind of hard to find nowadays. Who knew? And what I couldn't find locally, I just sourced online. I'm going to try to stick with components that were popular back in the day, like Raceface, Synchros, and of course Shimano. But I'm also going to try a new product, well, new to me, it's Microshift stuff. So I'm going to try to modernize the drivetrain, and I thought this is a good way to try it out. So for right now, I'm just going to go with a rigid fork for this build. I managed to find this Kona P2 fork on Craigslist for a really reasonable price. So I'm going to strip the paint, and I'm going to paint it black to match the frame. Well, the build is complete, and I just love the way it turned out. It has this old school, new school vibe to it, and it's pretty cool. All the new parts bolted on perfectly as they should. The only used parts I ended up using was this old synchro seat post that I had kicking around since the 90s, and I managed to score an XTU brake off of Craigslist since, well, you know, a new one's pretty much impossible to find. So what's left to do now is stare at it, and of course, go for a ride.
I've been dreaming on in my head like I've seen it. A life worth living is a life with meaning. I'll do what I love till my heart stops beating. I'm feeding this demon. Got a taste, can't erase bitterness in my face. Work a job every day till your dreams fade away. Like a card, never change. Play the game that we say. I need a break. I'm staying strong, need to move on to be what I want. I'll keep dreaming on. I'm staying strong, need to move on.
You get a lot of strange looks from people riding modern rigs. I guess they don't really understand the whole nature of old school hand-built hardtail bikes. The good, bad, and the ugly about this bike, I kind of miss cross-country geometry. It's been pretty responsive. Having a rigid fork, you really got to plan your lines and really concentrate on the riding. And now for the braking, now I'm not going to pretend that the U-brakes are anything good, but they are doing the job. But they are a far cry from V-brakes and disc brakes. And for the extra wide handlebars, I don't know what we were thinking that narrow handlebars were all the rage back in the day, but having extra wide bars on this vintage bike makes all the world of difference in handling. So you guys, go get the wider bars. Now these aren't ultimately wide, they're only 740. You can get up to 780 or an 800. I think that's a little too wide for this bike, but 740 seems to be the right size for this hardtail.
I'm staying strong, need to move on to be what I want. I'll keep dreaming on. I'm staying strong, need to move on to be what I want. I'll keep dreaming on.
Oh, first bail. Well, I've been having a blast today running this old Sovereign up here in Thornhill. It's been performing flawlessly. The new components on that old frame are working hand in hand, and it makes it one unique ride. Is it as fast as a modern bike? No, it's not as fast. Is it as fun? Oh yeah, it's as fun. So I guess the question is it worth taking an old hardtail and putting modern components on it? Oh yeah, it sure is. Go ahead, give it a try, and you'll have a blast.